It's been a while since I made a video for this channel. I want to get back into the swing of things. I've got a new speaker project coming up, not my design. I've got the drivers for it. I've got the plans and all that. They won't be for down here, although I'll kind of audition them down here just to see how they sound, and I'll do some measurements as well. But that's coming up. In the meantime, I've been doing some other things. I've also done a lot to finish this room. The only thing really that was missing was the back wall. Some of it was done, like I would say maybe 60–70% of it was done. I finished that recently. I took a full week and I built the things that were missing. In particular, the big one was the door coming into the room. Now I can close the room completely and cut off any, well, I mean, nothing here is soundproof. All the stuff that I have done here is just treatment, acoustic treatment. It helps keep some of the sound out, but I'm living in an area where there isn't a whole lot. And this is in a basement. The road that I live on is that way. So there's, you know, a mountain of dirt between me and the road noise. So that really doesn't reach here. So it's very quiet. And the only thing that I really had to concentrate on was the treatment in the room. And so I finished that up on the back wall. One of the bigger things, like I said, was the door. That was, well, first of all, I should talk about the back wall. I wanted to have the whole thing diffusion from side to side. Instead, because I was making those panels from Baltic birch plywood, it became very difficult to get Baltic birch plywood. And I had enough, but I didn't want to use it on that in case I couldn't get any more at some point down the road. So I decided to make absorbers in the corners instead, which is really what I should have done to begin with. So I built one over there where I'm pointing with my thumb that way. And the door itself is a big absorber as well. It's about 6 inches thick, and it has a regular masonite slab door on the other side. Just a regular 2-panel door you buy at the home center. I had some of those, and on this side is the absorber panel with the insulation. Now there's no air gap behind the insulation, but it still works reasonably well. So yeah, I finished off the room mostly, and then I laid the rest of the carpet tiles, the cheap ones, and out into the say vestibule or lobby. Right? I kind of think of this almost as a, I don't know, a venue, and then that's the lobby out there, and then the stairs coming down. It's almost like a ceremonial thing. And so I got this idea that I would build some fancy trim on the stairs, like the entryway into the stairs coming down. That's an upcoming video on my main channel. But yeah, that's what stuff I've been doing in the meantime. And anyway, so maybe that's enough of that for now. I'm gonna do a more detail-oriented video covering that stuff a bit later, I think. I'm not gonna make any promises, but I think. So I'm not an audiophile, and the reason why I'm pointing out that I'm not an audiophile, because I think it's important for those of us that aren't audiophiles, not by the current definition. And I say current, I don't mean current year. I mean current, I don't know, 50, 60 years. I mean, audiophiles meant pretty much the same thing for the past, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 years. So the thing is, I mean, I would, like most, okay, it would just be non-audiophiles that would call me an audiophile. Say you're an audiophile, because I've got this, you know, listening room down here and a fairly involved setup and all that. So I'm definitely an audiophile according to them, but it would be other audiophiles that would say, no, he's not an audiophile. Definitely not. Well, okay, so the reasons why I'm not an audiophile. And I'm going to add a number to the title of this video, depending on how many reasons I come up with, just off the top of my head. First one is that I'm almost completely rational. Now, there are things that I can get irrational about, And I recognize that in myself, and I've been working on that. But mostly I'm rational. And that's kind of a big dividing line between someone that's not an audiophile, but loves listening to music and loves the, you know, the equipment and all that, and the true audiophile. Rationality. All right, I'm not easily, like, it's not easy for me to fool myself about things. I'm very, like, I went through a stage earlier on in my, say, non-audiophile life where I would kind of fool myself when I would be listening to things, and I would hear differences that weren't actually there. So that's the rationality thing. All right. So yeah, I'm not into the fooling myself. So rationality is probably number one and probably the biggest one. Second one is that I'm not, like, I don't have any records. I did at some point before I started collecting records. I was actually, every time I went to a used place like Goodwill or any place like that to look for stereo equipment, usually stuff that was broken so that I could scrap it and use the parts to build other things with, especially amplifiers. I would rummage through the records that were there, and I would pick up a few. And I actually got a couple of turntables at the time, and I got that set up. But you know, the world has moved on from that, and I don't get the fixation on it, especially these days, especially with younger people. It seems like, okay, if you're going to have any audiophile cred whatsoever, you have to have like racks and racks of records, and they have to be the specific cuttings and all this, and you have to have a top of the line turntable with a top of the line cartridge and a top of the line phono stage and all this stuff. And I say to myself, why? Like, I listen, all the music I listen to, there's another non-audiophile thing here, is on my computer. I've got, like, I probably have more than 100,000 songs on my computer. At the click of a mouse, I'm listening to the song. Okay? And I set up playlists, and I can sit back here and I can listen for hours if I want to. Okay? So, no records in my collection. Like I said, I used to have some, I gave them away. And now everything I have is digital on my computer. So that brings me to number 3. I'm listening to music from my computer. That's not good. That can't be good. You got to have all these other things in the chain. You got to have some sort of streamer and DAC and all these. And then I don't know what you need for a computer to qualify as audiophile these days. Maybe, you know, because things seem to be changing a little bit. I got to say that. I should say that up front. Because, I mean, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, no, you wouldn't see any acoustic treatment in an audiophile's room at all. There'd be none of that. What the heck do you need that for? All you need is the right cables to make all the difference in the world. You don't need any treatment. So that's changing. You see a bit more of that. So I don't know about the computer. I'm not well versed in how well received computers are these days, but I'll tell you a cardinal sin on my part is I list some of the stuff I have on the computer are MP3s. So they're compressed. But you know what? They sound good. Anything that doesn't sound good, I get rid of, or I got rid of many years ago. And all that's left is the stuff that sounds good. Now, with that said, I should point out that anything new that I get, I do rip it with FLAC. And okay, I said FLAC, and then there'll probably be some audiophiles that would have an issue with FLAC. All right, I don't. It's a placebo effect with me, because if I were to rip at 192 kilobits per second in an MP3, I don't think I would detect a difference between that and the well, nearly, I don't know the bit rate for FLAC, but it's quite a bit more. Okay. So yeah, the FLAC, the compressed audio that I'm listening to. And, oh yeah, amplifiers. The amplifiers that I'm using right now, well, I'm using three. But the two that drive my main speakers, because these are active, okay? The two that drive my main speakers are just receivers that you can buy at your local, electronics place. One of them is a Yamaha that I bought way back, and that's doing the bulk of the work. The other one's just a 2-channel receiver that I bought, I don't know, a couple years ago, thinking that it would be suitable for what I was doing down here. Originally, my speakers were going to be passive, so things changed in the interim. But I'm still using it. But it's still what an audiophile would say is an entry-level, non-audiophile equipment. There's no magical pixie dust sprinkled on any of my equipment, so that goes against me. I don't know. I've lost count of the numbers. Was that number 5? It could be. Anyway, so tied to that is the DSP. So instead of passive crossovers on these speakers with beautiful parts, and you're talking inductors that cost like $250 each, and capacitors that could cost upwards of $500. My speakers don't have that. I use a DSP instead. Because, okay, I built passive crossovers before, and originally my speakers were going to be passive, but you simply can't beat DSP. And you ask any audiophile, true audiophile, and you'll say, no. DSP? Audiophile? No. Oh. Anything that no audiophile there. So, with that said, I was thinking eventually what I would do, because I have the crossover slopes and everything nailed, pinned down for these speakers, so nothing has to change, which is the beauty of a DSP. You can change things. So I've been dialing it in for the past year, believe it or not. And so I was thinking about making an electronic crossover, an analog one, to replace the DSP. So that would be a difference. So right now you got your computer that's sending out a digital signal. It doesn't go through the sound card from the computer. It just comes straight from the motherboard out to the DSP. The DSP handles the digital analog conversion, but it does its DSP magic before it does that. So all the processing is still in the digital domain, and then it gets converted to analog and sent out to these entry-level receivers that I have here that are definitely not audiophile quality. So yeah, I mean, the other thing about not being an audiophile, I don't know if this is number 7, whatever number, I'll put the numbers in. No tubes. I don't have any tube equipment. I do have an amplifier that I made long back, with tubes in it, but it's a Class A. It's small. It really doesn't. I really don't have a use for it yet, but I may. It depends on these new speakers that I'm going to build, because they're high efficiency. So 10-watt Class A amplifier will work just dandy with those, I think, and I may do that. But I cut the cord off that at some point to use for some other project, and so I'll have to put a cord back on it. So yeah, there's that. Oh, I forgot to talk about my other amplifier there. It's a homemade one, so another non-audiophile piece of equipment, although that's kind of maybe borderline as well. Okay, so anyway, that's the amplifiers, the music, the lack of records, the lack of tubes, the lack of irrationality, and at the moment I really can't think of anything else. Oh, I left out a big one. I don't believe that cables and interconnects, competently made ones, are going to sound different. I use good quality cables that I have from before. And when I say good quality, I mean, you know, maybe $5 a pair or $10 a pair. And I bought some on Amazon. I think they're a little bit more expensive, maybe $20 for a pair or something like that. But regular 16 gauge speaker wire for my speakers to connect all of the drivers and the speakers, because like there are four pairs of wires coming out to each speaker. So yeah, that would be like if you're buying the highest of the high end speaker cables and you've got this kind of a setup here with 4 and 4 and then subwoofers as well. Yeah, you're into a lot of money, and I simply don't believe in it. And I mean, this goes back to the rationality thing as well. And you know, some of this is I don't want to use the word ignorance, but some of it is just a lack of information on what affects sound. And you're going to find the biggest improvement you can imagine if you do some room treatment and you do enough of it in an effective way so that it actually works. That's going to be your night and day comparison, because that's what it was for me.